Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Spirit Side Podcast. I'm Paul James Caiden, and today we are going to talk about, is Halloween the Devil's Night or the Devil's Holiday? It's that time of year where we're seeing a lot of articles and videos on the video platforms across the internet warning people to shut themselves away on October 31st, pray, wage spiritual warfare because there are demons and devils running rampant, and there are many people out there who are kidnapping pets or children and sacrificing them on the devil's altar on Halloween night. But let's ask the question, and I asked this last year. I did a video on YouTube about this, and I'll leave a link to that video below for anyone who's interested in viewing it. There's really a specific place where this whole idea of the holidays, not only Halloween, but Christmas, Easter, any of the holidays that people celebrate. There's kind of a specific place that really lit the fires for this to take off in certain religious sects. So if you're interested in knowing about that, do watch the video below. It is called, Are the Holidays Evil, Pagan, and Satanic? And again, that link will be below if you're interested in watching it. I wasn't podcasting at the time, so there isn't an audio of that particular podcast, here on the podcasting platforms. So it might be interesting to get a little bit of a background on that, where all of this kind of originated. I mean, there were always certain religious people that would look at, the holidays or Halloween and say, oh, it's evil, it's pagan, it's from the devil. But as I said in the video last year, these were the people that were considered the kind of the fanatics or the fringe movements. People like Jehovah's Witnesses, or very strict Christian sects that were kind of still in the dark ages. Their women couldn't wear makeup. They couldn't wear dresses. They couldn't, the congregants weren't allowed to dance or listen to modern music because all these things were satanic or of the devil. So at once upon a time in religious history, most of the people that held this view that holidays were, of the devil, were looked at by most Christians and religious people as being the fanatics and kind of kooky, because their beliefs were so, kind of out in left field, and it wasn't really overly accepted. We'll put it that way. But there was a time and a place where this kind of thought began to gain traction in a lot of the other mainstream Christian denominations. And just to recap a little of what's in the video I made last year, it was a gentleman called Jack Chick. He was a cartoonist, and he started making these religious comic strips. And then, it got into Chick Publications, where there were books written, and they were very anti-Catholic. They were very really tracing all the problems in the world back to two sources, Nimrod and the Catholic Church. And Jack Chick put forth that the holidays were all pagan and satanic, and we shouldn't celebrate. And when these books came out, I think it was the 50s or 60s. I'm not sure of the date right now, but it wasn't really that popular. Again, people looked at Jack Chick as, one of these kind of fringe people. He's anti-Catholic. He's He's kind of a mean guy with some of the things that he says. But it started to gain a little bit of popularity, a little bit in the 70s, little more in the 80s, but really kind of took off toward the end of the 80s and into the early and mid 90s, because a lot of the televangelists got a hold of the Jack Chick idea, and they really perpetuated this idea that the holidays are satanic. Don't celebrate Halloween. It's the devil's night. And in classic televangelist style, as they did with the Harry Potter books, don't buy that. It's full of occultism. It teaches your kids how to be witches. Stay away from it if you believe in God. But order now, this alternative book, written by me or my daughter in the ministry, so it was a money pull. Don't buy, don't get involved in that, $1 million industry of this best-selling book. Bring those millions of dollars here where it's pure and it's Jesus and it's good, and it really was like a money grabbing thing, trying to siphon, finances and money and customers from these big industries of movies and certain books or even holidays. I've heard televangelists in the past say, don't celebrate Christmas. That satanic pagan holiday. Send your money into this ministry. All the money that you would spend on a meal and presents for all of your family, send it into the ministry where we can do good and we'll feed the hungry and preach the gospel. I've heard things like that said. So it really was some spurious sources that started really perpetuating the Jack Chick notions. And as I said in the video last year, there were a lot of mainstream churches and denominations that were at that time teaching some of these televangelist doctrines because it was very popular. Everybody was watching TBN and CBN, Kenneth Copeland, Pat Robertson, all these, very popular televangelists, Benny Hinn. And so the churches, in order, hey, this is something that people want to hear. Let's start preaching some of these doctrines that they preach. And it did. It filled seats in a lot of local churches across the United States, even in New York State where I live. And one of the things that kind of crept into a lot of the local churches was the idea the holidays are bad. We're not going to have a Christmas tree in our church anymore. We're not going to have Halloween parties at the church anymore because it's all satanic. We're getting rid of all that. So that was kind of the germ that set this whole thing being viral in our world as it is now, with so many people, posting and warning others. It's the devil's night. It's satanic. Don't get involved. If you take your kids trick-or-treating, you're spiritually responsible for, getting them involved in these pagan and satanic rituals. But now let's break it down a little bit. Is there any truth to any of this? Are we endangering our children if we let them trick or treat? Are we calling demons to our door or into our homes if we have a jack-o'-lantern on the front porch or in our window or in our living room? Well, the short answer to all that would be absolutely not. I mean, that's this is just purely superstition, and sadly, I have to sigh again, when I talk about this, because it's frustrating because, I'm a spiritual person. I'm a very spiritual person. I have no I have no problems with reading the Bible. I have no problems with Jesus or Christianity or any other religion for that matter. And it just bothers me when you see a movement or a religion around Jesus and his teachings, which were, they were completely groundbreaking in their day, and they still are. You don't see a lot of religious movements or founders of religions that have just such a deep, rich, teachings that can be contemplated over and over, so far-reaching. And take those teachings about faith and love and, just pumping it full of hatred and fear and superstition, and then throwing it out there amongst the masses and say, this is what you must do, or you're going to burn in hell. It's very sad. It's very disheartening for me to see. And I just don't think a lot of people follow this kind of thing through logically in their thinking. I mean, does Halloween and Christmas, do the holidays have some pagan origins? Of course they do. But let me ask this. What in this world doesn't? If we're going to follow this very fundamentalist, superstitious belief system that, the holidays are evil, satanic, we need to stay away from them. Halloween is the devil's night. Shut yourself away. Don't even go outside. Don't participate. Don't buy the candy that they sell. Don't take your kids trick-or-treating. Okay, if we're going to believe that, then we may as well shut ourselves away and never go outside. Because pagans used to worship trees. Primitive man worshiped the moon, the sun, the sky, the mountains. Were human and animal sacrifices made to these objects of nature and the cosmos that primitive man considered God? Of course. There were always people throughout time immemorial that did very horrible things in the names of their religion and their gods. Human sacrifices, animal sacrifices. But then there were always those who also lived, peacefully within their particular religion. We can even find people in the Old Testament of the Bible sacrificing animals. And a couple times a person was almost sacrificed or were sacrificed. Who is the guy in the Bible who, I don't remember which book it's in. I think he went to war against, an enemy nation or army. And he told God, if I am victorious, I will sacrifice to you or give to you the first thing that comes out of my house when I return home. And he was victorious in this battle. And then he went home, and the first thing that came out of his house when he arrived home was his daughter. And he was very sad because he had to sacrifice his daughter to God. Now, yes, that's not a very nice story, but we find these things even in the Old Testament, and many people claim to follow, the God of the Old Testament is the Father of Jesus, etc., etc. Well, where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line? Is it okay to sacrifice animals and even people to the Old Testament God? but it's not okay for people to sacrifice animals and people to, their God or the devil. I don't think anybody should be sacrificing anyone or anything. But these are ideas of primitive men. And these were things, if you look at the teachings of Jesus, he pretty much came along and said, okay, we don't need that anymore. You don't have to do that. That's why he's so hated even amongst the people in the Jewish religion today, because they say he tried to change their religion, their customs of old. And those were the things that they, if you read through the Gospels, that the religious leaders of the day said they wanted him put to death. They wanted him, out of the way, because he was telling them, hey, these things you're doing are not good. They're not of God. They're not saving anyone. And they didn't want to hear it. They wanted to stick to their old superstitious ideas and customs. And isn't that the case in this day and age? We just want to keep clinging to our superstitions and our customs rather than evolve and grow as human beings, as spiritual beings, as children and creations of God. So yes, the holidays did have pagan origins. A lot of things in our world do. So should we, I use the illustration. Well, let me finish this thought first, so I don't get off track. The holidays having these pagan beginnings, and some of those pagan traditions and beginnings were bad, very bad, but some of them were kind of innocent, like any other religion throughout the history of mankind. It's got its mix, things that are not good, things that weren't so bad. But whatever these people did, whatever these people believed, whatever god or goddess these people worshipped, like anything else, it changes over time. And this is why exactly, the church, and yes, it was the Catholic Church, that they wanted to Christianize these pagan holidays to bring more pagans into the church. And so they made, Halloween, All Souls Day, All Hallows Eve, Christmas, celebrating the birth of Christ rather than, the rebirth of the sun god and the winter solstice and all this sort of thing. So their intentions were not bad, because there were also a lot of pagans who converted to Christianity, but they were still celebrating their high holy days, because they've done it for so long. It ran in their family, their cultural upbringing. So again, this is one of the reasons the church said, okay, we're going to Christianize these days, so people who are coming into the church and coming to Christ, aren't going out there and celebrating these pagan holidays to, an old pagan god. So let's kind of repackage it. So at least if they're going to celebrate it and acknowledge these days, they're doing so through the lens of Christianity, of Christ, of the true God. So the intentions were not bad. It's not like, some people depict, the Roman Church, it did, there's another one. It done some good things and it done some very bad things. But when it comes to the holidays, it's not like they were sitting there wringing their hands, sitting on a throne composed of pentagrams and satanic Bibles going, ha, 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 how can we deceive the nations? Let's Christianize these pagan ideas and get them inadvertently worshiping Satan. Yes, that's what we're going to do. No, that's not what happened. It's completely ludicrous and idiotic to think that, but there are some people who do think that. But it's absolutely not true. That is a mix of heavy prejudice and superstition, because that's not the way it went down. And that's how these holidays became Christianized. Now, that being said, I think it's also another point worth covering that I talked about last year. People have to realize worshiping something is an act of the heart, the soul, an act of the will. If I take a group of kids out trick-or-treating, if I have a jack-o'-lantern in my house, if I have a Christmas tree at Christmas time, am I making God angry? Am I worshiping a false god? Am I partaking in some satanic ritual? No. Because to me, I like Halloween. Anybody that knows me, listens to my podcasts, have watched my videos, knows I enjoy the day. When I was a kid, it was all about trick-or-treating and candy and having fun and parties at school and, going out with your friends on Halloween night dressed up. We didn't think about the devil. I've always loved the fall, but for me now it's become kind of a fall celebration. And it's also taken on a spiritual significance, kind of like, Hallows Eve, All Saints Day. It's a time where I remember those who have, passed on before me, going into the world of spirit or heaven, thinking about the afterlife, honoring those who were important in my life. Did their best to teach me good morals, good values. So that's what it becomes about for me. And so, if somebody is having a fall celebration, family fun, taking their kids out, having a Halloween party, or maybe some of the, other people do have kind of a spiritual significance to these days, in their churches. They're still celebrating these days through the lens of their Christianity, of their religion. They're not honoring demons and devils. And do we think God is that weak or stupid or ignorant or just angry like some people are? Look at all those kids trick-or-treating and their families. They're going to hell. They're not worshiping me. If that's your version of God, man, you need to trade it in and get a new one. It might be quite a different story if you're carving a jack-o'-lantern and bowing down to it and calling it God, worshiping the sun and the moon and your Christmas tree and, all this sort of thing, and sacrificing, babies to, the spirits of the night or whatever the case may be. Yeah. Then you're probably, going to have some issues with the man upstairs. That's worship. That's a willful act of worship toward an object or a mythological man-made God who is bloodthirsty and terrible and, shouldn't be believed in the first place. But if you're just celebrating with your family. It's fall. Maybe it's kind of a religious holiday to you. Maybe it's just a fall holiday where you have some fun. Nobody's doing anything wrong. As I said in last year's video, I saw a video last year where a guy said that we shouldn't put up Christmas trees because every time, we shouldn't celebrate Christmas because every time we bend down to get a present from underneath the Christmas tree and give it to, our loved ones or ourselves, we're inadvertently bowing to the goddess of the tree, that the pagans worshipped. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You can't inadvertently bow, I mean, that again would be like saying I'm going outside and I have to, bend down to tie my shoe. Or maybe I saw a quarter on the sidewalk gleaming in the moonlight or in the sunlight, and I bent down to pick it up and I inadvertently bowed to the moon god or the sun god or the tree gods or the nature gods outside that the pagans worship. That is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know why or how people believe some of this stuff. It's complete superstition. It's completely irrational. I use the analogy last year, if that's the kind of thinking that we're going to have coming from these fundamentalist camps, we might as well, it would go something like this. Nobody should ever use a knife for any purpose. Don't cut your steak with it. Don't spread your butter with it. Keep knives out of your home. Don't ever own one. Because the pagans used knives to sacrifice animals and human beings to their pagan gods. Murderers use knives to stab people. Satanists use knives to make their sacrifices to the devil. So obviously, knives are Satan's choice of tool to hurt, to kill, to maim, and to sacrifice with. Therefore, all knives are satanic and we should never use a knife. That, if you really think about it, that is what a lot of these people are saying, that's their idea. Well, pagans did this on this night. These people did this on this particular night years ago. Therefore, everything associated with this night is evil and pagan. We should never do it. It really goes over the falls in a barrel. I saw one gentleman that had an anti-Halloween video up on YouTube, and he was saying how awful and how satanic and how evil the night was, but then he turned around mid-video, and he was saying that the witch hunts never happened. Hanging people, burning people at the stake. People accusing other people of being witches and having them tortured and killed, before the church councils. He said this didn't happen. If it did happen, it happened on a very small scale. And the whole thing is just a bunch of propaganda to make Christians look bad. I mean, for crying out loud, this is like denying the whole Holocaust. We know. We absolutely know, that these witch trials and these witch hunts happened, and that people were accused of being witches because they had a mole on their face or somewhere on their body, and they said it was, the teat that the devil would come and suckle on the witch at night. All kind of crazy things. But here he is building this, tremendous case of satanic Halloween, but then in the next breath saying, oh yeah, and these witch hunts. That's just to make us who believe in Jesus look bad. What do we think? Christians were stupid back in the day and they actually did these things? Yeah, they did. It doesn't mean the religion is bad. It means the people, just like today, who practice that religion are misinterpreting and doing a lot of very foolish things in the name of superstition, fear, and ignorance, as man always has. So if we're going to go that route and talk about how evil everything is, and we should be locked away, waging spiritual warfare against the devil, if everything holiday is satanic and pagan, if knives are satanic and pagan because they're always the choice of the pagans and the Satanists to make their sacrifices on the altars with, and nobody's saying that, that's my analogy. But if all this is true, then we have to say Christianity's satanic. Look at all the people the Catholic Church killed in the beginning if they wouldn't convert to their form of Christianity. Look at the Inquisition. Look at the witch trials. Look what Christians from Europe did to the Native Americans when they discovered America. Look at the animal sacrifices and the things done in the Old Testament. If we're going to start equating human ignorance with God, then we have to flush every religion, every tradition, every belief. We might as well gouge our eyes out and puncture our own eardrums so we don't hear or see anything, because everything in this world has been abused in a very dark and evil way by mankind, including the name of Christ, including the Bible. And speaking of that, here's a fact in closing. Did you know that the Christian Bible, and this was about 2 years ago, the Christian Bible was found, it was quite a high number. It was something like 60, 65, 75% more. The Christian Bible, let's even say 65%. The Christian Bible was found 65% more cases where there were murders or crimes or suicides committed than satanic Bibles or satanic or pagan paraphernalia or symbology. But I bet most people don't know that. How many stories do we hear of these women who throw their newborn babies in the oven and roast them or throw them in the trash or kill them because the Lord told them that that baby was possessed by a demon? And people will look at that and say, oh, well, that's crazy. Well, isn't it a little crazy to think that a pumpkin with a face carved in it is satanic and some evil trinket of the past that is bringing hordes of demons and devils into your home? Isn't that a little crazy? Do you really think that that vegetable with hollowed out with a stupid face carved in it and a candle inside of it has more power in this world than God? Is that what you think? Is that what some people think? But there are a lot of murders and suicides and crimes committed in the name of God, in the name of Jesus. These people that commit these crimes spewing scriptures when they're caught. 65% or more than people who are saying Hail Satan or some other nonsense at crime scenes. People committing heinous crimes. And I would venture to say that people that commit these crimes and murders and suicides, it's what they call religious excitation. It's getting so deeply ingrained in religion, particularly a form of religion that is very fearful and condemning. And it takes the person it's almost like a nervous breakdown. Religious excitation, they begin to be delusional. They begin to do things, that they think are pleasing to God, that are very nutty, because they actually start to break down psychologically, like it's an actual clinical psychological condition that many people are treated for. Because again, it's like a nervous breakdown, and I think that's what a lot of these people have when they commit these crimes and do these terrible acts in the name of God or the Bible or Jesus. And I'll tell you right now, with people out there thinking that, a pumpkin with a face in it is, satanic, locking themselves away, turning out all the lights in their home, and, praying in the name of Jesus to defeat the darkness on Halloween night. Back in the late 80s, I knew a Christian family that was when people would knock on their door, the trick-or-treaters, they would open the door and spray Raid in the face of the kids. That's crazy. That's religious excitation. And I think there's a lot of people about to go over the psychological falls in a barrel because they think so morbidly and, about these things that it's actually starting to affect their reasoning ability. And folks, that's not what religion is all about. That's not what Jesus is all about. That's not what the Bible is all about. We need to stop. Who was that? Susan Powters back in the 90s, the exercise woman. She had the shaved head, and she'd always say, "Stop the insanity." We need a Susan Powters of spirituality to say, "Stop the insanity," because folks, this is insane. And now I'm not saying that there aren't, just as, there aren't crazy people into paganism and, hail Satan, I worship the devil. I'm not saying there aren't people out there that don't sacrifice animals, or if they can, try to get a hold of a human being and sacrifice them to the devil. Yes, it does happen. But it's actually, and the statistics are actually quite low. And the statistics for people committing crimes or doing terrible things, in the name of Jesus or Christianity was actually higher. Now, maybe that's changed a little bit in this very insane world that we're living in right now. But, folks, this was the reality of it. There's nothing in this world that has not been tainted by man. There's nothing in this world that hasn't been worshipped by pagans of the past, pre-Christian era. There isn't anything that hasn't been used by diabolical men in their evil thinking in the name of Christ and God to suppress, oppress, hurt, kill, torture others in the name of religion. It's all been tainted. Whether you want to sit there and go, at least I worship the true God. Really? The people burning women at the stake because they thought they were witches, they thought that they were worshiping the one true God and Jesus Christ as well. But were they? I always go back to that statement of Jesus, by their fruits you will know them. Are these the fruits of good God-fearing Christians? Burning women at the stake? Torturing them? Spreading all this fear and propaganda? Oh God, don't put if you bow down, if you pick up a Christmas tree or a Christmas present from underneath the Christmas tree, you're worshiping the tree goddess of old. Does that sound Does that sound rational? I mean, at the very least, folks, I don't know. I'm just going to let that thought go. But, the things people do in the name of the one true God, but are they really? Because this gets really crazy, and then we're going to turn around and say something like, "Don't take your kids trick or treating." Again, I heard a person last year watching videos on YouTube. He said he was going to take his, and I said this in the video last year. He said he was going to take his kids out on Halloween night and hand out Bible tracts, and there were droves. I mean, this is a pretty popular YouTube channel. This guy had droves of comments of people saying, "Don't do it. My God, if you do this, your blood is on, their blood is on your hands. Participating in this night in any way is absolutely spiritually dangerous and spiritual suicide." I mean, I chuckle a little bit sometimes when I talk about these things, and, but it's heartbreaking that people would believe this and pass this off as religion, Christianity, the way of Christ. This is just superstition, fear, mythology. It's, it's horrible to think people are that imprisoned by their own fear and superstitions. But yet they say, this is the will and this is the way of the one true God. And again, I ask the question, is it? Which one do you think would be more harmful? Taking your kids out trick-or-treating, going to a Halloween party, having a jack-o'-lantern in your house, just saying it's fall, it's a cozy time of year, I love, it's just fun. Or is it more dangerous to set back in going, don't even step outside on that night and hand out a Bible tract? You're putting yourself and your family in spiritual danger. You'll lose your salvation. God will not be pleased with you. You could end up in hell. You could end up sending your children, into the hands of the devil. And these people were writing, some of them with great anger, some with great fear, some with great sorrow. And you see this a lot in these anti-Halloween videos, the way people speak, the comments on them, on the articles. So which one is more harmful? Which one do you think would be more harmful? A Halloween party where nobody's even thinking about the devil? Or B, the religious excitation? We need to straighten out our thinking with all of this, because it's reaching epidemic insanity, proportions here. And, it's not going to do us any good. It's not going to do religion any good. It's not going to do God any good, because people are going to look at religion and the concept of God, which many are already. They're jumping ship. They're saying it's a bunch of nonsense. Look how these people act. By their fruits you shall know them. Where's the love? Where's the kindness? Where's the treating other people with a little bit of dignity? Where's the old Christian concept? I don't have to hate someone because they're different than me. It's just gotten really crazy out there. And in conclusion, just let me say, no, I don't think Halloween is the devil's night. It is, if you want it to be, an act of the will. If you want to board yourself up in your house and think the devil's right out there at your door ready to snag your soul, if you peek your head out on Halloween night, hey, it can be the devil's night if you wanted to. If you want to go out there and try to sacrifice animals and babies or some stupid thing like that, it's the devil's night if you want it to be. Just like the Bible can be used for terrible and evil purposes if you want it to be. Just like the moon and the trees and the sun and the mountains can be worshipped as some diabolical god that's bloodthirsty if you want them to be. Understand it's an act of our will, our belief, our faith. Remember the old credit card commercials, what's in your wallet? I think it was Capital One, the greatest credit card, they would say. And at the end, they would ask, what's in your wallet? Well, let me ask at the end of this podcast, what's in your mind? What's in your heart? Is there more darkness, devils, fear, and superstition in there than there is light, love, peace, kindness? I think we need to check up on ourselves before we start writing articles and making videos and podcasts, shouting from the mountaintops how satanic everything is. Maybe what we're doing is satanic. Don't they say fear is of the devil? So if we're out there shouting fear from the mountaintops about Halloween or Christmas or jack-o'-lanterns or whatever, might we be claiming to be one of the good guys, but we're playing on the bad guy's team? It's a thought, folks. So listen, once again, I appreciate all of you listening. It's always a pleasure to have you come by, listen to what I have to say. We're all very busy. So anybody that comes and listens to my ramblings, I appreciate you guys. And as usual, if you want to support the podcast and the work, links are below for Patreon, my Angel Thoughts Metaphysical page, and I think that's it. My email if you want to contact me, ask me any questions, all my information is below, and also the link to last year's video. If you want to watch that, it delves a little bit deeper into chick publications and so forth. So, as usual, I hope that you got something out of this today. It made you think, and I hope if you're one of these people that thinks, Halloween's the devil's night, and you really, really believe that, I hope rather than attacking the podcast, because that's what we like to do. If something is different than what we believe, we like to attack it and call it wrong and it's foolish. I hope at the very least you'll take 30 minutes out of your day and just think about some of these things that were talked about. Be a little bit rational. Faith doesn't ask us to check our brain at the door. We can use our reasoning ability. We can think things through. We can be rational. We can use our mind. God doesn't want, I don't believe God wants a bunch of people that just, like the Pied, the rats following the Pied Piper because the pastor said it, because this guy said it, because more and more people are saying it. Well, I have to believe it too. We need to think things through. There's nothing wrong with that. And I hope this podcast will, give a little bit of ammunition for thinking, because I think there's a lack of rationale and really thinking things through logically in today's day and age. And that just doesn't go for religion. That's across the board, But if we're going to be, spiritual people, we of all people need to be more rational, more logical, more educated. more balanced. We can't be out there half-cocked, throwing all this nonsense all over the place, thinking we're doing good, when all we're doing is looking a bit unhinged and pushing more and more people away from the concept of God. You know, that's all we're really succeeding in doing. And also the people that do believe what we say and go, holy cow, I think he's got a point. Making them afraid, pushing them toward the symptoms of religious excitation. I mean, is that really good? You know, I've said enough. I'm over time. I appreciate you listening. Thank you again. I'll see you guys next time here on the spirit side. Until then, stay safe out there, everybody, and don't be afraid to be reasonable and logical people. It's so much needed in our world today. Peace.